mode.
Well, hi everybody, and welcome to our ongoing doggy webinars, Dissipation of Glamour, Dissipation of Glamour webinars. And this is something that Olivia, Hansen, Tuija, and I started as a necessity to counteract at least to do our share, as so many groups are doing, to counteract the prevailing glamours in the world. And their name is Legion. They are so many. So we have to learn how to clear things for ourselves in our own individual case. And then automatically, as we work upon ourselves, we'll be working on the larger situation. But that doesn't mean that we cannot work also in the general attack on world glamour. Really, the first thing that has to come is the attack on the world Maya, and Rule 10 in the rays and the initiations gives us the method of doing that. It's a very strenuous first ray method, and then, it sort of drives evil back onto the astral plane, and then one day, when Vulcan is discovered, humanity will, with massed intent, stand up to the glamours, which, if we handle everything well etherically, won't be allowed on the etheric physical plane anymore, but they'll still be there, and they have to be dealt with. I just want to, welcome you all here. If you're not here in the beginning, I can't welcome you later, but since you are here, Alex, Anna, Annette, Antoinette, Bibi, Carl, Clesia, okay, don't want to skip anything here. Deborah, Diane, Eha, Francois, Jan, Joan, Joanne, Yoke, Karen, and Lori, Lorraine, Margot, Marianne, Martha, Michael, and of course Olivia and Tuija are here with us as sponsors. Martha, I said Marianne, Martha, Michael, Olivia, Risto, Stacia, Tiffany, Tiu, Vera, Victoria, Winnie, Yvonne, and Zach. And, a few of you may, be joining a little bit later, but in the beginning, that's where I can express my appreciation for you all gathering here for our work together. We're working on the technique of the presence. It's a rather advanced technique involving really illusion, and we'll be getting into that as well, because the whole book is about cleaning up the Augean stables. We have much work to do with the dispersion of Maya, the dissipation of glamour, and the dispelling of illusion. Those are the three levels of the Augean stables, which must be cleansed during the Aquarian age. And Aquarius is a very, cleansing, dissipating kind of sign. It scatters the opposition, and it reveals the sun that shines in truth and in clarity upon the astral plane, reflecting the Buddhic plane and making the astral plane an organ of the distribution of the pure love energy. I suppose, we have to pretty well take the second degree before that begins to be possible, but increasingly it is possible. And a lot of fight with the glamours of the world are taking place between that lengthy period between the first and second initiation, but it's not over yet. And even between the second and third, though the focus is on the power of illusion, misinterpretation and control of the mind by great thought forms, still there is work with glamour to do. I just want to have a little alignment for all of us. We're gathered, mostly in three areas of the world: the Americas, including Canada, Europe, and Australia, New Zealand. And there will be some people from other areas too, of course. But it's a big triangle, really. And it's the triangle, I think, where the Alice Bailey work is primarily focused. And we're one group together. We're seeking to operate as increasingly soul-infused personalities. So we just let that soul energy, however we want to visualize it, the white light, the golden light, however you visualize it, descend into all aspects of the personality. And we somehow are in the realm of consciousness. Space is overcome, time is overcome. We are touching each other. We're like one consciousness working together in group form. And of course, we will use our beam of light, a triple light, which is as one light, to do the work of cleansing the astral plane a little bit at a time, so that the great sun of truth may shine on the astral plane and the energy of love can be expressed. So, with this little visualization in mind, we will sound the Om together. And, we learn together and we seek to constitute ourselves as an instrument in cooperation with hierarchies so that we can really help clean up the astral plane in these days when so many people are misled by their idealisms, by their emotions, by their desires, and so forth. Keep in mind the thoughts that you've been thinking about during the last week with respect to glamour, and anything that might occur to you here as we are discussing illusion. It's all the great Mahamaya. It's all the great illusion. It's all glamour. These words can be used in a specific sense, etheric, emotional, or etheric, astral, and mental, or they can be used in a broad sense. It's all the great illusion. It's all glamour. It's all Maya here in the lower 18 subplanes, which constitute the dense physical body of our planetary logos. So it's a cosmic dense physical body in which all the trouble is found. And if we get the purifying rays of the cosmic ethers in there, which comes when we build the Antakarana, then we're going to clarify the situation greatly. And we have the Aquarian age in which to perform this, during which time we're going to have, quite a few incarnations, each one presenting new challenges. Now, what we've been doing so far, is the last few times, he's been giving us sort of 9 steps here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. I'm just quickly reviewing what is presented. And the idea is that intuition is what dispels individual illusion. It dispels group illusion. We have to achieve in this technique of the presence. What is the presence after all? It is truly our monad. It is truly God. It is truly being. It's the one reality. That's what the presence is. And it's so veiled and mantled and obscured by the prevailing illusions and glamours and by all the confusion and chaos of Maya that we, don't even sense it. We rarely sense it. So all those veils have to be lifted. And if you study carefully Rule 10 in the rays and the initiations, you'll see the methods of making the rents, the tears, the rips in the veils of Maya, as Moses did, as the Christ did, the really big one, and as St. Paul did, on 3 different levels of the halls of Maya. So we're trying to lift these veils, rip apart all that obscures the truth, dissolve it, dissipate it, disperse it, dispel it, so that we can finally get the truth right down here on the levels in which we temporarily at least live and move and have our being, the lower 18 subplanes of our planetary logos, really the veils of illusion in the large sense. If you know the tarot, you'll know that the 18th card is the moon card, and it does represent illusion. So anyway, we have to achieve this state of tension so that we're ready to contact the real. We have to achieve increasing fusion with the angel of the presence, which is maybe as much of the tremendously powerful solar angel as can be located within our egoic lotus. We have to learn to hold the mind steady in the light of the soul. And this is not just functioning as a personality. We have to function increasingly as a soul, not by strictly personal effort. So a lot of work on contemplation has to be done there. There are other stages involved here. We have to begin to really sense the presence in all things and to realize that everything is divine. Whatever it is, whether it's good or whether it's bad, it's all an externalization of the one infinite being, which really is the presence. Then we have to, increasingly ascertain the purpose of our planetary logos, and we all participate in that purpose because we're monads within the planetary logos. So the ascertainment of the purpose is a key realization. Not that we're going to ascertain the whole thing, not by any means, and no member of the hierarchy even can do that, nor any Chohan. I mean, pretty well you have to be one of the great Kumaras, a Buddha of activity or an esoteric Buddha, to know what's really totally in the mind of our planetary logos expressed as Sanat Kumara. Then we think about a world problem, and we submit it to the triple light of the intuition, which is called the personal self, the light of, the mental self, and the universal light of the presence. This triple light, a lot of concentration and long practice is needed. Then the answer may come to our problem, but it's never a personal problem. And we are what's called the intruding agent of light. A little later, he tells us that H.P. Blavatsky was an intruding agent of light into the intuitive realms, and eventually we become a custodian of some contact with the light that we have managed to penetrate into. So all of these are very, very deep things. Then various stages pass in which we get ready for practical work. We relinquish the higher way. We return to the angel. We refocus in the soul. We have some constructive thinking about how to solve the problem under the revelation we may have had. And this is under the mind held steady in the light, and therefore under the influence of the angel. And we turn the mind to the forms of thought which must embody the revelation which we have experienced. And then we have a pause, and it precedes presentation to the lower worlds, where things get a little rough because we have to precipitate our revelation into the world of illusion, where it undergoes a fiery ordeal. This is a very occult idea. Some of that, it's part of the new Agni Yoga, the yoga of fire, Some of the fire of the revelation goes back to the source. Some of it burns the revealer. Some of it burns the one to whom there is revelation. But when I think about this burning, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's part of the burning ground, and it's part of the purification process. So this is only possible if we really begin to sense the fiery presence of the monad. So obviously we have a long path to tread here before all of these different methods are possible to us. And finally, our revelation, and there have been wonderful, simple, perfect revelations, are submitted to the world of illusion, and they disappear in that illusion, and they are formulated into doctrines, and meanwhile they captivate the minds of those who are still subject to illusion. So a lot of the work we have to do with people is take the prevailing illusions and break through them and make the original revelation that the illusion has captured come alive again, so that they, ourselves, see and know what is the original revelation, and we are not captured by the dogmatism which continually just gets repeated without understanding its source. Okay, so that takes us to where we are now, the 9 steps there in the technique of the presence, which is really all about accessing the intuition in order to dispel illusion. Now, so many glamours arise when we begin to desire the illusions we think are real. We have all these misinterpretations about what the world is, how it's put together, what our relations are, and all the rest of it, and we begin to believe them. And as we believe these things, the glamours form, because, glamour is all about distorted, misdirected desire. We have the desire for these things without completely understanding them, and we begin to direct our lives according to those errant desires. So in a way, the very first thing we have to do, although it's the hardest to do, is clear our mind of illusions. And then we are able to deal with the glamours which form around those illusions, our misinterpretations of the nature of life. Okay, so now let's go on a little bit here. The basic technique, the technique of the presence, that's what we're talking about here, the technique of the presence. And I'm going to, I'm always looking for my red brackets here. And so the basic technique of the presence underlies both primary and secondary revelations. Now, in the case of the first, the time cycle is long because they are primary revelations are revelations from Shambhala. And, we're not necessarily in a position to understand exactly what they are, but they condition human thinking and functioning over a very, very long period of time. In the second, which is the revelation from hierarchy, let's call it that, the revelation, from hierarchy, the time cycle is relatively shorter. Then he tries to give us an example here. A very good instance of this process is demonstrated by one of the secondary points of revelation in connection with the teaching which emanated from the hierarchy. Secondary points of revelation. The custodian of secondary revelations, as Shambhala is of primary revelations, 50 years ago. So maybe, this is written in the 1930s, 50 years ago, and which took the form of the secret doctrine. And HPB, that great disciple to whom Alice Bailey dedicated a treatise on cosmic fire, a great first ray disciple. I don't know what her monadic ray was, but from the soul perspective, certainly the first ray, and sometimes I think it was the third ray in terms of the brilliance of her mind. Anyway, HPB was the penetrating, sensing, appropriating, intuitive. Now there's rays 1, 2, and 3 right there, all lined up. Ray 1 penetrates, ray 2 sensitively senses, and ray 3 grasps with the hands, with the mind, and appropriates what is there found. So she was a penetrating, sensing, appropriating, taking it as one's own, intuitive. So that was a secondary revelation, as magnificent as it seems to us. Hierarchy is responsible for secondary revelations, and we're quite well enough off dealing with a real understanding of secondary revelations. Everything that DK is going to give, still as a member of the hierarchy, he's given 2 installments, one through HPB, one through Alice Bailey, and another one is coming. It's all going to be secondary revelations, but they're so magnificent compared with what we know that, they turn out to be primary factors in our life. So this was a good example of a secondary revelation DK is telling us about. The revelation she conveyed, sometimes DK calls her he, sometimes she. She was a great medium. You don't know who is at home there in that particular vehicle, because the vehicle is said to have been used by a number of the different great ones. And she was a great first-rate soul. And she's now a master. So the story goes in Agni Yoga that this great masculine first-rate soul, even though then functioning through a female body, is called he. And maybe that's one of the reasons that DK calls her he. The revelation she conveyed followed the accustomed routine of all secondary revelations from the source to the outer plane. And there's a lot of, there can be some satisfaction, but also a lot of grief in what happens to those revelations as they descend into this fragmenting illusion and this fog of glamour. There, the outer plane, there the minds of men, veiled by illusion and clouded by glamour. Now think of those 2 words. One is veiling, one is clouding. He says the astral plane isn't clear at all. It's like a sort of a gray, hissing mass of constantly changing fluid forms. There the minds of men, veiled by illusion and clouded by glamour, formulated it, the revelation, into an inelastic doctrine. Well, we're all familiar with that, if we've been exposed to the dogmatism of the church or certain political ideologies, recognizing no further revelation and holding steadily many of the theosophical groups, not necessarily all, that the secret doctrine, here we go again, was the final revelation, and that naught must be recognized but that book, and not deemed correct but their interpretation of that book. What hubris, what pride, what nonsense. If they are correct, then the evolutionary revelation is ended, and the plight of humanity is hard indeed. Well, and you see this with a lot of the religions. The Bible is the end of it all. The Quran is the end of it all, and so forth. Not so much in Buddhism, perhaps, but they do have a very complicated theology, because the concrete mind of man tends to complicate things. I'm remembering Master Moria saying, well, what is right to do? To complicate or to simplify? And basically, he has no use for the complication. He calls it the cerebral sinuosity of the brain. And he basically says, well, any idiot knows that you don't try to complicate things, you try to simplify things. And simplicity, we are told, is what opens the door into Shambhala, which is the greatest revelation of light possible, the great unfettered enlightenment. So, excuse me, even the neophyte upon the way of the intuition, and when you start building the Antikarana, when the second initiation is somewhat in sight, already the intuition has a certain resonance, because you're using the what we call the visualization process of the astral body to reach the Buddhic plane. So 2 and 4 are connected. So the plane of intuition is Buddhi. The 4th subplane there is Buddhi. Even the neophyte upon the way of intuition can begin to develop in himself the power to recognize that which the lower concrete mind cannot give him. We sometimes say the mind is the slayer of the real, but there's so many different levels of the mind. The mind is a great revealer of the real. we also learn. But the concrete mind tends not to be able to give such a good representation of what the truth really is, and thereby, through its inelastic nature, tends to slay the real. Okay, so we begin to recognize, even in the beginning, what the lower mind cannot give us, and so we reach up or into our higher power, as it is called, to God immanent, to God within, to something more divine than just our thinking process can reveal. Some thought of revealing potency to be used for the helping of the many may drop into his mind. Now, you know what? I love how this works because this is, if you know German, and I know a little bit, an Einfall. This is an Einfall, which means that something falls in, drops into, and that word means intuition, Einfall. So something from a higher level of vibration drops into the mind, and we have something new to deal with, and some answer to a problem which we did not understand before. Some new light. Now test yourself here. Do things occasionally drop in? You have these Einfall moments when something comes. Some new light upon an old truth, an old truth may penetrate. Releasing the truth, now I love this phrase, releasing the truth from the trammels of orthodoxy. See, the orthodoxy is the problem because it's just there's only one way to interpret this. This is exactly it. If you deviate, you are lying. You no longer have the truth. So these are the bounds, the strictures, the chains of orthodoxy. And we need, like DK does, to look at things from every different angle so as not to get trapped in the concreteness of the concrete mind. So something drops in, some new light upon an old truth. You've been repeating it forever, and suddenly it makes sense, releasing the truth from the trammels of orthodoxy, thus illumining his consciousness. And when, our first real illumination is at the third degree, which is called, the enlightenment, the illumination, Satori. So many of the spiritual books from the East, they aim towards this third degree where the light really does come in. This he must use for all and not for himself alone. Well, this seems so obvious that the intuition is not personal. Somehow when you go with these higher principles, you may discover something personally useful for yourself, but it's not all about answering your questions about what shall I do in life and all the rest of it. Your thinking, reasoning, soul-infused mind should be enough to handle that. So if something drops in, you've got to use it not just for yourself, but to distribute it widely because it's part of the plan. So this is a test in a way of unselfishness. If you're grabbing at the intuition, then you're in the fourth labor of Hercules, and the intuition is symbolized by the doe or the hind or the deer, with the golden antlers and all that. And, this is mine. This idea is mine. You know how people get possessive about ideas, and you try to bring it to the temple and say, this is mine. And the next thing you know, it's wandering freely out there on the hill for someone else to capture or grasp temporarily. So no true ideas belong to us. We are simply receivers. Little by little, he learns the way into the world of the intuition. Day by day and year by year, notice the length of this process. This is not overnight. You might get a great idea overnight, but the real ability to access this in a scientific way takes place slowly. He becomes more sensitive to divine ideas and more apt in appropriating them wisely for the use of his fellow men. So a gradual process, and if we are to become intuitive, excuse me here, every once in a while I add one of those abbreviations, which helps, I think, all of us later on. If we are to become intuitive, it will take time, application, patience, all those good things. There's no, excuse me, there's no cheap and easy way to revelation. You buy your experience, you have energy, you have thought, you buy your experience, and it takes time, it takes lives before one becomes an amazing intuitive like the Christ is. The hope of the world and the dispelling of illusion lies, excuse me, in the development of intuitives and their conscious training. Now, you think, well, how can you train the intuition? Well, building the Antakarana is one of the ways of doing it, and the study of symbols is one of the ways of doing it, and making that bridge that you realize that whatever you see around you that is of a concrete nature, it has an archetype which is not concrete and which the intuition can reveal. So what is the spiritual principle behind any concrete thing that you see? The first step there is spiritual discernment, and eventually this is going to lead to the cultivation of the true intuition. There are many natural intuitives whose work is a blend of the higher psychism, and the higher psychism really, it has to do with the higher mental plane. If we're to look here at the abilities, the higher psychism is coming in here on the third, second, and first planes, a lot of it at the third degree when the Ajna center really wakes up as it should, and then it leads to developments on the other levels. This particular chart assembled by Keith Bailey, who sort of runs the new Masonic Lodge here, this is showing the higher psychism and the kinds of powers that eventually lead to the intuition. Comprehension of the four sounds, seventh subplane of the Buddhic plane, healing, sixth subplane, divine vision, fifth subplane, and finally, the true intuition, which interestingly enough is a little bit lower than this higher form of idealism found on the third subplane. So there's a whole great and wonderful study that you can undertake of these things. And obviously in the Moria Federation, we try to offer a very, very comprehensive program so you can get into these things in depth. So there are many natural intuitives whose work is a blend of the higher psychism with flashes of true intuition. Now, what are the intuitive planets? Neptune and Uranus, not universe, Neptune and Uranus are two of the great intuitive planets, and let's not forget Mercury, very important there. And the whole idea of flashing forth is a Uranian and Mercurian thing, but Neptune also reveals the intuition in a more subtle kind of manner. It's so super sensitive that it gets beyond all the barriers which prevent you from touching the truth, the life of that which apparently lay beyond the ring past knot that you could not penetrate. And when you think about Christ, it is said of him, he knew what was in man. So basically, with the Christ, no ring past knot provided a barrier. Who was the Christ? He was Neptune. And at the first two initiation, Neptune presides. He has a fantastic relationship with Venus and with Neptune, and also at this time with Sirius. So if you're looking for the true mysticism, it's a high Neptune ability of sensitivity, which allows you to penetrate beyond the barriers where the mind cannot go. It just sort of dissolves those barriers, gets in, and then through your super sensitivity, through your mystical sensitivity to the mysteries, really what's there by a wonderful sense of touch, which reveals the nature of that which you have touched. So they work with the higher psychism and they get flashes of intuition, but we want to do more than that. We don't want it to be a now and then kind of thing. We want to have a scientific approach to the acquisition of the intuition. And DK is teaching us how to do that so that you can do it any time by simply using the Antakarana in the right way and not kind of wait for what's called the astral Buddhic leap. Now that does happen, if you are feeling intensely enough about something, it may leap over the mental plane and give you the intuition. But then how do you interpret it if your mind is not trained? So there must be the training, and I love this phrase, the training of the exact intuitive. Remember, this is the plane of pure reason we're talking about, the Buddhic plane, and it reveals the truth in exactitude. So I will say that on the Buddhic plane, the truth is revealed in exactitude. Okay, paralleling their intuitive response, this is so important, and their effort to precipitate their intuition into the world of human thought, there must also be, now let everybody take this to heart, and Alice Bailey talking about the well-stocked mind and, Gemini that she was, with really a brilliant mind as well as intuitive capacities, Gemini being one of the intuitive signs once it starts to work with the Antakarana, paralleling their intuitive response and their effort to precipitate their intuition into the world of human thought, there must also be the steady development of the human mind. Well, that's where, the Tibetan comes in, and that's where we work, in the Morya Federation and the Arcane School and the School for Esoteric Studies and the reliable esoteric schools. We develop the mind and its usefulness in the field of occultism. Okay, so the steady development of the human mind so that it can grasp, there's your, apprehension, and apprehend what is projected. And in this too lies the hope of the race. So when you think about it, what do we have to develop? We have all to develop buddhi and, if I can say it, manas, buddhi and manas together. This is our frontier. It's not just to be in the fifth sub race of the fifth root race, or even in the sixth sub race. It's not just to be able to think abstractly, which is very good and necessary for revelation, but it's really to develop the buddhi along with the manas, so there is a seamless downflow from the transcendental mind, which is called buddhi, into the abstract mind, into the son of mind, into the concrete mind. Son of mind reveals the unity, and the concrete mind helps to formulate all of those specific concepts which will help people apply what has been received above. Okay, so that, I never know how far I'm going to get, but let's just say that there's a lot here. And I always overestimate where I can possibly go. Excuse me. But let's just see how far we actually are. We seem to be on page 184. So let's just say that the next time we get together, this is the end of academic work, or academic, reading in GWP, The Glamour, A World Problem, and I guess we're up to page 184, wherever we began. I'll fill that in a little bit later. And the next time we get together, on this subject, we'll work from page 184, and there's some really wonderful stuff here that will help us all become eventually not only good, clear thinkers, but trained intuitives. It's a frontier. To be the occasional intuitive, okay, great, it's useful, but to be the trained intuitive, so you know the science of accessing the intuition, it's a specific course of training, and that we have to apply and learn how to do over many years if we have the patience, because the fruits of occultism will not drop into our hands unless we are willing to spend our energies to acquire them. Okay, now, before we get into our meditation, it's time for you, if you have thoughts, questions, excuse me, just need a little drink of water here. And, things you've been brooding upon or you'd like to discuss. Like I say, I don't have all the answers, but I can attempt to make a response, which hopefully will carry a little bit of light, So just raise your hand if you would like to speak, or put in a question if you have a question or statement. And by the way, I want to say that I wrote into the chat box, which you all should be able to access, the idea that at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning GMT, Tuija is leading a webinar, which is part of the Triangle's academic work, but is a special adaptation of that work to help subjectively with the terrible famine and food shortage, which is now in Africa, in the South Sudan, a very new country, and in Nigeria, Yemen, Somalia. And I think those are the countries where just so many people are threatened, and especially children, and it's in the hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions threatened in this way. So, we're not members of Congress and we're not in the Senate or in the Parliament, but we have some esoteric abilities, and we will apply these abilities subjectively in these kinds of emergency meditations. So there's your link, and it's the link we've been using for the academic work in the triangles. Please do join us if it's not in the middle of the night for you, and if it is in the middle of the night, you will get special points in heaven if you join us. You see how it goes. Okay, all right. So your thoughts at this time, your thoughts, your questions on what we have been discussing, or on anything you've been pondering about the nature of glamour and illusion. It's open, floor is open, and you're welcome to speak or to ask or to state, whichever it might happen to be for you at this time. And don't be shy, don't be shy. For me, I just wade right into this stuff, and what I say may be useful, may not be useful. We just have to have the courage to go ahead and say what's on your mind. That's the thing. Okay, anybody? And Brett, you'll let me know if there's any questions that I might overlook.
Right.
Hopefully not. It's okay. So now, Olivia, hold on. Yes, go ahead, Olivia.
Hi, Michael and everyone. I was just thinking that the technique and the visualization that I use when we do our glamour process or dissipating glamour process, I'm kind of interested in hearing what your thoughts are, Michael and others, about how you visualize this, because it's unique to each one of us.
That's true.
But I'm open for some new sparks of maybe a fuller or richer visualization for myself. Maybe for others might be interested in this too.
Sure, and you're quite right. It's a very individual matter, isn't it? What occurs to us, and I'll tell you what, I could tell you what I think. But maybe if there's anybody else that wants to offer something, they're free to do so. And then I can tell you the very simple method that I use, because I somehow use, a lot of simplicity here, So is there anybody else that wants to address themselves to Olivia's question? Okay, well,
I guess you get.
I could get the ball rolling.
You get to go first.
I get the ball rolling. It's the Aries fate. You always get to go first. If Sheldon, who is an Aries, is here, I know he'll go first, so I don't have to go first. Anyway, I visualize glamour as fogs, mists, and clouds. And I see the sort of poisonous effect of these glamours working to create undesirable situations within the human family. And then I use the beam of light, or participate in the use of the beam of light, as a great dissipating agent, which is like a wind or a burning process, which takes apart, dissipates the fogs, spreads the clouds so they don't exist anymore. You know, in a way, it takes the darkness away and its poisonous effect. And then, of course, what's important for me, I share, a great sun rises on the scene where before there were clouds and distortion. This wind blows it away, the beam burns it away, and I repeat certain mantras to myself, which I make up for myself, and then the sun rises, the sun of truth, the sun of clarity, the sun, which is after all, it is the solar plexus, you know, the sun, which is the opposite of all the things that have been dispelled, and brings love, and brings unity, brings truth, brings clarity, brings a true reflection of the archetypal world instead of all the distortion. So it's very simple for me. I have the instrument, which is the wind, or which is the beam. I have the clouds, the fogs, and the mists, which have to be dissipated until they are no more, with the correction of the relationship, the bad relationships which they have caused, and then the sun comes out on a new form of relationship altogether, which is truthful, loving, archetypal, reflecting pure reason, and so forth. Now, this is what works for me. It's quite simple, you know, but everybody can do their own thing, you know, whatever they think is involved, it works for them. That's what works for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How do you visualize that then affecting the whole world? Because, you know, is it like, well, I guess when we beam the light around the whole world.
I don't necessarily do that. I focus on the microcosm of the glamour, and
Okay.
I just zero in on what it does in a small section, and I sort of blow it apart. And in other words, look, I don't allow it to appear. Remember Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings, thou shalt not appear, thou shalt go no further, you know, he said to this horrible demon. I visualize it not appearing. The second one, what was the second one? You know, it's right here. The first was the appearance. The second was the quality. So I visualize that quality disappearing from the field of human beings. And then then the last one, for me, life is vitality. So I visualize the devitalization of those energies which held the glamour intact. It's almost as if they just fall down and no longer support with vitality the forms which glamour took. So I deliberately see the devitalization, that's the third point, of the glamour. And then after that, everything is quite clear to clear the whole space. Or if I want to visualize the world, I can visualize the microcosm of the glamour within the whole Earth sphere, and then the sun comes out as if in the middle of the Earth. Now, you know, obviously every one of our imaginations is constructed differently, and we have different symbols, you know. Yeah.
You presented, though, an interesting technique, though, of focusing on the microcosm and then expanding it to the macrocosm, or the world, if you choose to, but rather than uh,
I don't,
focusing
yeah, I don't dissipate my
on.
efforts too much. You know what I mean? Because it's hard enough for me to just focus on what this glamour does in a few instances in a smaller space. And I figure
Mhm.
one for all, one thing stands for all. If I manage the immediate change of relationship, it spreads and the sun comes out. When the sun comes out, it comes out over the whole world. So
Right.
it's like illumination. Hmm.
Well, I think that's very interesting, though, and helpful because, we all have our own process for sure. But this idea of working intently in a very focused way on the microcosm or a smaller, manageable
Yeah,
focus,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
and then expanding it, however.
Yeah, and I can use the mantrams. I use mantrams all the time, and I make them up, you know.
Right,
And
right,
some of these mantrams are very assertive, very assertive. So you just have to find what works for you. Thou shalt not, you know, it's all included in what can be words of power. Okay,
right.
Livy, very good. We'll see. You know, everybody will evolve their own method, for sure. Okay, and Tuija, yeah, you go ahead, please. Go ahead. Uh-oh. Oh, you're on self-mute, Tuija. You're on self-mute. You have to get off of no, now you're on. Whoop, what happened? Somebody hit you with a.
Oh, because I have also,
Oh, there's two of you. Oh, there's two of you.
yes.
How true. Okay.
Oh no.
Okay, now go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Do you hear me now?
Not very well. I heard you better before.
Oh my God.
There. Now good.
Do you
Good.
hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Now you're gone. Now everything's on self-mute. Everything is on self-mute. Get rid of that mute. There you go.
Oh, because I have
Okay, just leave it.
computer and also my mobile.
Okay, leave it the way it is. You can be heard now. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So I wanted to also participate earlier, but I couldn't find the way. It is wonderful question, Olivia. Well, how I do is that when the question of meditation, there is some kind of chapel or inner sanctuary within myself, my head, from where I work, and it's normally always dark, like a point of spot, black spot, and that is silence. And from there, where one is focusing the light, I follow that light. And because my line is somehow trying to understand the Davic life and the elemental field, so I am studying that what happens etherically. And trying to be aligned very much with the group. So I follow energetically also how the group is moving downwards. And I try to align my light, so-called from me, even though that is not practically true at all. But anyway, I'm following like in my imagination that light focusing down, and then I'm studying this, what it starts to ripple on the field of lower plane. So in that sense I cannot distinguish myself away from the world, because in that line of energetic connection it is just a stream of enormous sea which is connected.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, I have noticed that if one is focusing, whatever quality it is, if we think about egotism or hatred, whatever, it has a certain type of vibration, and when my mind is focusing upon and go within that quality of vibration, I let it work like by itself, because when the higher light is focused upon this lower vibration, I have realized that it just starts to like change by itself, that the higher quality is stronger than the lower.
Mm-hmm.
And it has effect immediately throughout the same horizontal vibrational etheric plane or etheric stage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you know, DK,
So
he
I
often,
studied
yeah,
those elementals or that vibration, what it does, and I have noticed that when the group is working, once I tried that, I don't do anything, I just be aligned with the group, and because of the power of the group, it just started to happen in me as well.
Mm-hmm. See, the beam itself has power, with power upon the beam, as we say when we
Yes.
have the spiritual will, and even bringing the beam in contact with the glamour on the astral plane, just holding it in contact will do work that we need done. So we have
And
to,
then
yeah,
this is, I'm sorry.
go ahead. Yep.
Yes, and this has been something in my observations that the DK has been pointing out that we have to do that in the group. But because it is so immediate reflection on those planes when one is truly by the will emerging with this lower quality, and because it is connected to that awareness what is on these lower planes, I have noticed that it is from that dangerous work, because you immediately affect to those stronger beings or entities which are related to those planes. When you come with a purpose to really try to make the changes or make the rip in the veil, this other side is aware. And I think that is why DK, or one way of looking at why DK says that it can be only done by the group, and you have to have some kind of experience of working, because
Mm-hmm.
you absolutely make effect.
And we have
And
a protective formula too. We remember. So that
that's right.
protective formula is necessary because look, the real concentration of planetary evil at this time is upon the astral plane. So that's where they repair, that's where they go. It's called Mara Kara. And when the Buddha fought Mara, he was fighting, very much on the astral plane. So, this is not work that is to be taken lightly, and we have to hang together, and we have to, follow the instructions carefully and protect ourselves as we are
Yes.
working.
And
Yep.
last time I also told to Michael what I noticed, that it came to my mind, this what is in Bible, when Christ was chasing out the devil, and then came, how many devils came back?
Well, more came back than were chased away.
That was
Mm-hmm.
right. So even after the our glamour work, we should be aware and continue within ourselves to guard these realms,
Okay.
because this effect is going on, and I think that if we are very unaware, somehow we are also protected by that counter wave. But the more we become aware and we can manipulate those energetic connections, the more we come also on the target of these
Noticed.
forces to move
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Well, you know, probably the climax of this whole thing is discussed in Agni Yoga, where it says that Madame Rorik, you know, who gave us the Agni Yoga teaching from Moria, was so brave that she walked into a meeting of the Black Lodge on the astral plane, assured them of their defeat, and walked out, you know, without being destroyed. I don't think any one of us would be wanting to do that particularly, but we do arouse the attention of those whose purpose it is to guard the glamour and to make sure that the glamour remains vital. So we do arouse the opposition. We do. And we have to be
Right.
protected for that.
And
So,
because there is immediate wants to try to build back if the group manages to make any even not the rip but start to make the rip.
Yeah, they'll want
There
to.
is immediate.
Right,
Sorry.
right. There is immediate attempt to repair. Now, look, I have a number of
That's
questions, a number of questions here from people, and I'm going to go down the list. And Brett, you guide me here if I'm incorrect. This is from Bibi.
Yes.
Bibi, as I understand
Right.
in the last sentence, he is pointing out the importance of the translation of eventual intuition to a language which can be, yes, understood, yes, in part, you know, he is always complaining. He's always frustrated by the inability of our normal words to convey his meaning. So at least we get something across, but for people to access the true intuition, they have to go through the process, but at least something of value will come through. This is a very important point in the distribution of reality, I agree. So it's got to become more and more concrete so it reaches the level of understanding of the people whom it must reach. But it's never the whole thing, never. And DK can't even give us the whole thing. He has in mind certain great realizations, and he's frustrated by the words that he perforce must use. But anyway, it's a step along the way, and you're correct there. So we have another thing here from Debo. The beam of light, of united light, is potent. However, fusing together the three lights is very important. Yeah, the light of matter, the light of mind, and the light of the higher mind or soul. Now, how do I elaborate that? I do it by feeling. I do it, I think, through my mind to understand. Through matter and vitality, I can bring life to whatever it is I'm conceiving. And through the soul, I sense the unity that connects all things. And I just bring those ideas together. I visualize three forms of light meeting on the mental plane, and I try to get the feeling of each one of those forms of light. The light of vitality and matter, the light of analysis and cognition on the mental plane, and the sun of mind, the light of the soul, the light which unifies, the light which has the power of truth behind it from the soul. And I visualize three lights coming together and have those ideas about what they are. So this is my approach, but everyone will have to have their own. Okay, so that was from Debo. Here, Jan. Hello, friends. Speaking of the visualization technique, something that is developing for me is seeing the energy of the glamour. Okay, contained. Okay, that's the first step. Containment is the first step. It doesn't dissipate it. It doesn't devitalize it. It doesn't prevent it, but at least it prevents it from spreading. Okay, contained. Otherwise, it seems a spreading mass without bounds. So if for you, it's good to bring together this diffuse, foggy, misty, distorting energy into a contained thing, you know, you can deal with that concentration maybe easily. These are all very internal things that have to do with how our mind is structured, okay? So you do it as seems best to you. Obviously, DK is not at all interfering in the methods that we might use. Further, he says that the building of the Antakarana is absolutely unique to everybody. So, he gives us the general idea, but what we visualize, how we visualize, what we experience, completely unique, and he cannot interfere with that, nor would he do so, nor would I do so. So I am using, you say, a square right now that contains the form of glamour, but it seems like the particular shape of the container may change and evolve. It may, okay, just make sure you do get rid of it at some point, at least in the imagination. This seems to help me sense the directing of the light more efficiently when it is in a type of boundary. Okay, that's fine, whatever works for you. And that's what I meant by I focus on a kind of microcosm of the whole problem. And I figure there will be a symbolic transference. If I can work at dissipating the main seed of that glamour, I assume it will simply transfer to everything. Okay, I mentioned mysticism. That's Joanne. You mentioned mysticism in connection with intuition. Please clarify the difference and how they may work together. Well, mysticism at first, DK tells us that it is a certain attitude of the one who deeply desires something higher. And he yearns for that, even can die of his yearning, which is very interesting. But he has the desire body yearning for the soul, and so there's a duality, there's a separation between the one who yearns and that which is yearned for, and that is preliminary mysticism, the idea of the, what would you call him, the aspirant and his or her God, okay? But the higher, this is all Neptune. Neptune rules the astral plane, Neptune rules the Buddhic, it rules part of the monadic level, and it rules the cosmic astral plane. So this is all an ascent via Neptune. And Christ, the world teacher, Lord Maitreya, is Neptune. He's called Neptune. So what happens in the higher type of Neptune, excuse me, what happens in the higher type of Neptune is the duality between the yearner and that which is yearned for is overcome. Neptune becomes so sensitive that it fuses the one who is yearning with that which is yearned for. And from that time on, identification occurs, and that is the true and higher mysticism. Like Tuija and I were having a conversation about this, and if I can just go over here to find, I don't know if I'm going to find it, but I'm going to do my best. Whoop, there's Alice. Coming. Oh, there we go. Notice how Uranus and Neptune are above all the other planets within the greater Saturn, which includes many different planetary schemes. These two are inseparable from each other, and one cannot be a true occultist unless one is a mystic in the higher sense, knowing identification, nor can one be a true mystic in the higher sense, knowing identification, unless one has all of that which the occult, intuitive mind of Uranus will reveal. So this is the picture. Neptune and Uranus are equal. As a matter of fact, in our particular solar system, Neptune the mystic may be more powerful than Uranus. Neptune has a second ray monad, and Uranus has a first ray monad. Well, the second ray monad applies to this second ray solar system, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if Neptune eventually will be considered the most important planet in this particular solar system and be the great absorber before it goes into the sun. By the time we get to the next solar system, Uranus has the first ray monad, and it's a first ray personality solar system. The first ray will be dominant, and Uranus will be the final absorber. But let's just say there's early mysticism where there's duality. I yearn for that. And there's later mysticism where I am that which I have yearned for. The seeker and the sought are one. And that's so interesting because it's the sixth ray. The mantram for the sixth ray, the seeker and the sought are one, and the sixth ray is Neptune. So I hope that can differentiate between early mysticism and the higher and later mysticism, which involves the Buddhic plane, the monadic plane, and even one day, even beyond that, the cosmic astral plane, where the Christ can now go or contact, and we can't, and nor can Master DK. So Neptune is sometimes called, if you know that beautiful musical piece called The Planets by Gustav Holst, he calls Neptune the mystic. But I'm trying to differentiate here between the lower dualistic mysticism and the higher identificatory mysticism. I hope that helps to answer the question just a little bit. Okay. All right, now, so far those are the questions, and I think someone had their hand up here. I'm trying to remember who it was. Yes, it was Yvonne. Yvonne, if you want to ask a question or make a statement, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you bet.
Okay. This was in regards to Olivia's question about different techniques. And what I've done is taking my focused light or beam on the astral plane with intention, and then I see the earth under me, and then I was wondering how I could get it off. So I rotate the earth slowly, and I take my beam and I start at the top and I run it in a zigzag back and forth till I get to the bottom, and then as I rotate the earth some more, I rotate, I come back up with a zigzag and I keep turning it and I get the whole earth that way. So that's all.
Thorough cleansing. I bet if you clean something, it's all done completely. So the thorough cleansing of the earth, and I'm using a little more symbolic method, but look, trust yourself. Whatever is right for you in your mind, whatever you evolve, it's a process within yourself. Trust yourself, because your method, my method, the other person's method will not mean as much to the other person as it may mean to the person who originated the method. So give yourself freedom there and just pursue it as you will. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Okay, so look, anything else? Because if not, we go on to our meditation where we're dealing with the glamour of egotism. And of course, I have to say, excuse me, I'm so sorry, that Saturn is not strong, usually, in Leo, the sign of egotism. Early Leo, I don't know what, let's see if I went to that page, but anyway, it's the lower self. So Saturn being strong there are natural limitations to the egotistic perception. Now, basically, the lower ego is no respecter of the law. Saturn is the law. Capricorn is the law. There are great laws to which the lower ego must conform. Now, some people just think they're above the law, and the law does not apply to them. And that is the egotistical situation. And we've seen a lot of it. People are lying, people are cheating, people are sneaking, people are not disclosing, people are not telling the truth. They are not conforming to the law which demands the truth. So, it's like my ego, right or wrong. That's how the ego thinks of itself. I'm always right, regardless of anything else. It's the center of the world. So now we have situations in the world where people put themselves above the law. It's been the case of many dictators. Mussolini, he was a Leo. Leo. Moon in Gemini and Scorpio rising. And Hitler had very powerful Leo on the top of his chart with Saturn in it, no less. And DK says his soul chart had a lot of Leo. And other people that are contemporary have this Leo thing, which is very early and a wonderful sign, which later is absolute self-sacrificial service, but in the early days, it's just that big fat ego, in the middle of your field of consciousness. So they put themselves above the law, and that will never work ultimately. There will always be a fall, because when you don't respect the law, you fall. And when your ego, your lower ego, is so big that it takes up practically your whole field of consciousness, and all you see is yourself and what relates to you or you think relates to you, pride goeth before a fall. By the way, Saturn, interestingly enough, rules falls. So when you don't respect your Saturn, you fall. And this is something we can think of in the world today, because there's a lot of it going on, and people really have to learn the law, and they will learn the law. They will learn the law in Aquarius. It's very interesting, because Aquarius has a very, very powerful Saturn. The whole first decade, the whole first 720 years of the Aquarian age is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is one of also the alternative rulers of Aquarius. So we're going to be in line with a larger law that allows all of us to get along in a way that prepares the way for brotherhood by the last decade of Aquarius. So bear those things in mind, perhaps, when we're having our meditation. Are there any final words or any final statements or questions which anyone wants to ask? If I've missed anybody, so far it doesn't look so. Anyway, look, we're all working together. We're all clarifying our minds. We're all gaining access to the soul, which knows. We're all learning how to contact our solar angel as the angel of the presence. We're all building our connection to the soul, or eventually our connection to the Antakarana and to the spiritual triad. Okay, we're on our way, and we have to be patient. Try to teach an Aries like me to be patient. But anyway, be patient and work steadily. And it's inevitable that the light of the higher mind will dawn, the light of the soul will dawn, the light of the intuition will dawn. Eventually, the unfettered light of the monad will find its way into our lower consciousness. Okay, friends, so let's have a little meditation. Okay. And just before we start again, I want to remind you about tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. GMT. We have our sort of esoteric rescue work going on for those countries that are, the children in which countries are in such grave danger of starvation. I think sometimes in the West, we forget how much we really have, and the horror of the fact that we waste. So we have to work with what tools we have to help this process be solved, somehow. The sharing has to come, and there on the side is your link for tomorrow morning's meditation. A little bit tough on the people in England, like 3 o'clock in the morning, or in Central Europe, 4 o'clock in the morning here in Finland. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, 7 o'clock here, 6 o'clock Central Europe, 5 o'clock in the morning, England. It's very doable. It's very doable. Okay. So. So we will have some silence together in which we allow the energies to bring us together as a group. Just in the silence, it's just fuses us as one working organism, responsive to the soul and to the ashram. Now bearing in mind, what was said, we do arouse the opposition, and we do arouse the elemental life, which is molded into these various deluding forms. So we use the protective formula, and we use the long-armed cross, and we say together, using the sign of the cross, as a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. I will ponder deeply the meaning. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And indeed, if darkness could not touch us, I'm sure that the lives of many of us would be quite different than they are now. Now, there are 3 preparatory stages. And we've discussed these different energies. We focus the light of matter, which I consider to be the vitality of the etheric physical vehicle, and the light of mind. We focus them together, however you want to visualize them, on the mental plane. The vitality and the power to think and to analyze and to understand, power to cognize. These 2 lights, drawing up the lower to the mental plane and focusing upon the mental plane and the mental body, the light of mind and the light of matter. There are so many different abilities the mind has, even the concrete mind. But it helps us, it's the common sense, and it helps us make sense of what's happening. The 2 lights come together. Then we meditate on soul contact. We try to feel it, we try to recognize soul light, however you want to visualize it sometimes, within the causal body or as a light above the head, however you choose to symbolize this to yourself. This is a real energy, and it's part and parcel of our energy system. And now we visualize the fusion within the mental body on the mental plane of the two lesser lights of matter and mind with soul light. We bring these together. We try to get the feel of their coming together. Three types of light visualized as coming together, felt as coming together. The energies of the sun of mind, of the concrete mind, and of the vitality of the personality. Three are one. Now, with that fusion imaginatively in place, we will say, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. And implied here is also the accessing of the light which dispels illusion. The light is one, and in that light shall we see light. Intensify the light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. The three are one. And now the formula, where we are bringing what is high into the area that must be cleansed. We say together, visualizing how we will as we do say it. And as DK tells us, as the words are said, the group members visualize a great searchlight that they have been creating, and we turn its light upon that great plane of delusion, the astral plane. Radiance are we and power. You can say this aloud in your home. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And there's the big hint. We turn the darkness the cloud-covered, fog-covered, mist-covered situation on the astral plane, the darkness. We turn it into day, and one day we will realize that the light of day is found on the Buddhic intuitive plane. This is subtle work. These are real energies. And we have to believe that as we work through visualization, something of benefit is happening on this great plane of distortion. Now we're going to strengthen our beam. Our beam is extended into the dark, into that serpent of illusion, as it is sometimes called, into the elusive astral light. And we'll invoke the spiritual will from the atmic plane, even from the monad, but also more closely from the higher parts of the egoic lotus. So we are going to strengthen our beam. The group beam will strengthen it. This will be our mantra. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And that goal, of course, is to dissipate the glamour and turn the darkness into day. So now we use the words of power in these three mantrams or words of power. And as we do so, we visualize the light, as he says, penetrating the glamour. Whatever that means to us, penetrating the glamour and producing its weakening and its dissipation. So together we say, while visualizing, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of egotism, that terrible mistaken identity, egotism, which makes us seem the most important thing when we are so small in the scheme of things. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of egotism. Then the power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. Finally, the power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour, the devitalization of the glamour. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour of egotism. Now, given these three words of power, over the next 5 minutes of silence, you can work in your own way to see these results occurring. You work in silence and with intensity of purpose, and the work will proceed. And with that work accomplished, we are looking for the antidote to this miasmic exaggeration, and that is a true sense of proportion, which is real humility, an adjusted sense of right proportion. And when that finally sweeps over all the earth, people will know who they are, where they fit, what their value and possibilities really are, and that false miasmic exaggeration of self-importance which afflicts so many who have reached the stage of being full-blown personalities, that will begin to disappear. So now our searchlight, our weapon, our beam, our means of dissipating glamour is retracted off the astral plane, brought back to the mental plane, and there we turn off the beam, affirming to ourselves that we have done something of value in dissipating the clouds, the mists, the fogs which cause this distortion of vision, which exaggerates the self-importance of so many so that they cannot see how things really are and where they fit in the scheme of things. Now we will affirm our belief in our work successfully done, just a little at a time, but successfully done. We sound the Om 3 times, visualizing clarity upon the mental plane, clarity, lack of distortion upon the astral plane, order and right rhythm upon the etheric physical plane, 3 times the Om. First, the Om on the mental plane, overcoming the fragmentation of things, asserting the unity. The end of distortion and minimization upon the astral plane, true proportion. Rhythmic order upon the etheric physical plane. Thank you, friends. We meet again in the continuation of our glamour work. Next Friday, it'll be an AM meeting. But tomorrow morning, remember, there's an AM meeting for a special Triangles broadcast where we focus on the famine in Africa. You know, these people can do really nothing for themselves. They are entirely the victims of the world economic military process. So we try to help interiorly, 5 a.m. GMT, tomorrow morning, and Tuija will lead that meditation. Meanwhile, I want to thank you all for attending, and the link you'll need is in the chat box, and it's the same link we've been using for the expanded triangles work. So, farewell, and thank you for participating. Lots of love to everybody, and you know, I can unmute you.
Michael,
Yes.
can I just say a little thing?
Yeah,
It's
Tuija,
not
go ahead.
going to be meditation in the morning. We are going to discuss about triangles, and also we are working for this family.
Okay, well, there'll probably be some work where we focus our consciousness to help out, I'm sure. So anyway, however you guide it, Tuija,
Thank you.
it will be that way. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and farewell.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Want to give you all a chance to see what would happen if we were all unmuted at the same time. What a sound that would be. Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Later.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Bye.
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 Love.
Lots of love to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
On mute and bye-bye.
Bye.